We're at another episode, and this time we've got some interesting questions that have been sent to us, and some that we've heard
from students
in classes. So we figured, let's just throw them out there. They're all about legality stuff.
Yeah.
How do I get my permit? What do I need to do? How do I, what if happens if somebody comes in my home? All that stuff. So they're real questions that people have that have concern about the legalities of owning a gun and using a gun and or carrying it in public. So we figured we'd help you guys out and, bring up some questions and throw them out there. Oh, by the way, let's throw the disclaimer out there.
Yep.
Guys, we are not attorneys. We are not giving you legal advice. This is just advice based on our experience and training.
Yes.
If you don't believe what we tell you, that's okay. It's just information. But go see an attorney who is familiar with this stuff, New York-based firearms laws.
New York, yeah.
And then get a final answer out of them. It's probably going to be the same thing we're telling you, but don't take our word for it only.
Yeah.
All right, so Matt, go for it.
Well, I want to say we didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so. Oh, boy. The first one.
Straight guy. Joker guy.
What is the maximum number of rounds I can carry in my gun? Many years ago, when one of the many New York gun laws was passed, they tried to say you could only carry 7 rounds in your gun, even if you had a 10-round magazine. So the 10-round magazine was legal, but you could only put 7 rounds in it. And the law went on to say, unless you were at like a certified range
or at home,
right? So that has led to confusion because that was challenged. That whole law was challenged.
Yep.
And then really the only part that was thrown out was the 7-round rule.
Yeah.
The judge basically said, well, yeah, we're not going to make people felons because they can't count. So yeah, you can put 10 rounds in your 10 or however many rounds your magazine will hold.
Right.
But 10-round magazines were still the limit. You couldn't have anything over 10. Okay. And then it was put out across the state that, look, 10 rounds in your 10-round magazine in your gun is fine. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it in the state police field manual.
Yeah, they actually did change the law and edit it so it doesn't say anything about 7.
Right.
It doesn't say anything about 7 in a 10 at a range or anything. It's just 10 rounds is 10 rounds. Unfortunately, they didn't do anything better, but the fortunate thing is they cleaned it up.
They cleaned it up, right.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes the 10 plus 1. So what does that mean? So that really essentially means you can load 10 in your magazine, put one in the chamber, and have 11 rounds in your gun. And I think the best way to look at that is there's no ruling against it.
Yeah.
So it says 10 rounds in the magazine. It doesn't mention chamber or the number of rounds in the gun. So therefore, attorneys I've talked to are kind of like, well, there's no ruling against it. Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully that puts that to rest a little bit.
I hope so. We'll start it again.
It was, that's been a battle for years. And then finally when it was cleared up, it was good.
But people have heard about it. It still comes up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we still hear about it from, a guy at the gun shop told me this, or, my buddy who's a cop told me this, or, I heard this from my friend who heard it from another guy, heard from another guy. Guys, we're telling you, not everybody's the expert on guns that they want to be or that they need to be. We do the study. We do the research. We read the laws. We don't just take the sound bites, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then we vet our info with attorneys who we trust their judgment on. So, for what that's worth. Okay? Good. All right. Okay, let me pull one out of the list here.
Yep.
How about, let's say, okay, everybody, you have a pistol permit, you've got pistols on your permit, but your spouse doesn't. Okay? Or significant other, or somebody it's in the household with you, or even a good friend of yours. Mm-hmm. If you're the only one that has those pistols on your pistol license, here's the drawback. If something were to happen to you, what's going to happen to your guns? What's going to happen to your pistols? Where are they going to go? So let's go with the easy answer, because we get this a lot. Well, I'm going to get my pistol license, but my wife doesn't have one yet. Mm-hmm. Okay? Well, you know what? Maybe she should get one, even if it's a premise permit. Although I'm hearing, guys, in New York State, they're going to start phasing those out.
That's what I'm hearing.
They're not really issuing them. So essentially, you're getting a pistol license. It's going to be for concealed carry.
You know what's strange about that is there were counties who didn't used to issue concealed carry.
Yeah.
And they would issue premise permits.
Yeah.
they seem to be phasing it out. But in our county,
Yeah.
they never used to issue premise permits. And I've seen a few premise permits come through in the last couple of years since the laws changed.
Yeah.
It's very strange. But in general, yes, it seems like mostly they're going away.
Yeah. We can have a whole podcast about that thing. But co-registering your firearms with a spouse or significant other, yes, absolutely. Here's why. Have your spouse or significant other get their pistol license, co-register the guns on there. Every county will let you do it. And that way, if something were to happen to you, they can still possess the guns and they can use them, they can do whatever they want. But if they don't have a pistol license, what happens if you're not around and the guns have to go to, we jokingly call it gun camp, but they go into the sheriff's department or an FFL or a dealer, and they're held there until somebody who has a pistol license can get it. Now, here's the other problem is, if it takes you a year or two to get it, there's a very good chance those guns are going to be destroyed.
If they go to the sheriff's department, they're eligible for destruction after 1 year.
So, in essence, your family, whether they're gun people or not, loses out on the value of your property that you've invested in.
Yep.
Okay? So, it doesn't matter if your spouse or significant other is not going to ever shoot one.
Yep.
Which is kind of a weird concept, but they should. But anyways, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Get the license, get them listed on there so that at least possession can be maintained in the family.
Yeah.
The other thing I would do is, you don't have a significant other, get a trusted friend of yours.
Right.
Get somebody and then, pay them the money to list them on their permit so that they can take possession of them, even temporarily.
Right.
But at least it's an easier transfer.
I think the other situation that we run into with this one is a lot is like dad has pistols.
Yeah. That is
And
one of the
dad's
other questions
getting
that
older,
comes up.
And now what do I do? If they're already co-registered, you can take possession of those pistols. But if they're not, you're going to run into trouble, especially if you don't have a permit.
Yeah. Well, in fact, we've had a lot of people lately get their pistol licenses because there's a chance they're going to be inheriting
In
some
the family,
guns.
right? I agree.
Right? So they get them,
Yep.
get the license, get them listed on there. And then the other thing that we would recommend, and we've had to deal with this with people with estate transfers, is once you transfer the pistols over, you only have the ability to possess them. You don't have ownership.
Right.
The original person, like let's say your spouse or your dad or parent, they still have actual ownership. So what they should do is write a letter and then just get it notarized. Have it in the will packet. Okay?
Yeah.
That they have given you ownership of those firearms.
Right.
Okay?
I mean, you could put it in the will. I mean, I know people have done that.
So that when that time comes and you've got to deal with this,
Right.
you just go get the guns. Boom, you're done.
Right.
You don't have to do anything. There's no transfer. There's no probate. Nothing.
Right.
You just get them. They've already transferred that property to you.
Right.
Okay. Even if it's just a letter on paper, that's all that matters. Okay.
Sure.
So because in New York State, immediate family transfers don't require a background check. You don't have to go through a dealer to do it.
That's right.
All right. So they can do the transfer on paper.
No problem.
And you own them.
Correct.
All right. So that just solved two problems.
I see someone screaming in the comments, well, what's this co-register? What do you mean?
Yeah.
In New York State, we have to list all our handguns on our permits. So that's what we're talking about, is listing those guns on our actual pistol permit.
Yep.
So I just saw someone jumping up and down in the comments. Oh, what do you mean? What is this? So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know. So we got a whole little list of them right here. All right. So Matt, give me another one. Let's talk about another.
So this one came in from one of our followers. Was it 1 dozen aces high? I believe is
okay. At 1 dozen aces high.
At 1 aces high. Yeah. Is there such a thing as shoot to wound?
Ooh.
Should I try to maybe wing my assailant? Well. So let's look at this backwards, I think. So should I try to wing? I assume they mean like just try to shoot him in the arm or the hand or something.
What are you just slow him down a little bit, make him stay?
Yeah, so think about this. If you're using deadly force, what is the requirement for that, right? There has to be serious risk of physical injury or death if I don't stop this person right this second.
Yeah.
So first off, does it seem like a good idea to shoot to wound? We need to stop the threat, right? And you're probably going to be under a high amount of stress at this point. So your shooting skills are probably not going to be as good as they normally are. And we all know how good a lot of people's shooting skills are to begin with. So could you make that shot, right? We should shoot at the best target we have.
Right.
And when the threat stops, we stop shooting.
Right. That's the overall concept
Yeah.
we teach, right?
And then you're also responsible for every round you fire. So what if you're trying to shoot them in the arm and you're off by a little bit and you miss?
A little smaller than
it's a little smaller than
right?
center mass,
The
right?
hand is way smaller than the torso.
Yeah. And you graze them and that bullet goes down and hits the kid down the road or goes into your neighbor's house.
You're responsible for that.
So my answer is we should shoot to stop. When they stop, we stop shooting.
I got an easier answer.
Yeah.
No and no.
No and no, right? Yeah.
No
I
for
would
the
say
first part, no for the second
That's
part.
where we're going. Yep.
And here's the way, I answer it very similar because, we've got the same doctrine on this. Basically, we're not shooting to kill. We're not shooting to wound. We're
Correct.
shooting to stop. And in essence, one instructor, we were talking about this, he goes, so you're actually shooting to live.
You're trying to save your own life. Yeah.
Yeah. You're shooting them to stop them from killing you.
Right.
So you're shooting to live. But in essence, you're shooting to stop. You're stopping the threat.
Yep.
But no, you don't shoot to wound.
Not the goal.
You don't shoot to wing them. Not in the movies where you shoot people in the hand, knock the gun out of their hand.
Is warning shot on here? Because that's usually now the next question.
That's usually the other one. Do I do a warning shot?
Right. Do I do a warning shot? No.
No.
The answer is no. You're responsible for every round. No. There are no warning shots.
Yeah. All right. So hopefully put that one to rest. That one's good. All right. So we took care of that one.
Yep.
All right. Well, you know what? We're kind of on the topic, right?
In the same general area.
So this is one that we get questions all the time for people that don't come to one of our legalities courses because honestly, I've had it told to us, based on reviews or people that have been to our classes in person. We do a really good job of explaining it in plain language, not the legalese that's in the state law.
Yeah.
About the use of deadly force and physical force. Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's the way I explain it. Okay. Here's the question. What is the difference between physical force and deadly physical force, which is used for which situation? And here's the way I explain it. Okay. I look at there's three levels. There's physical force, which is like pushing, shoving, maybe a punch, maybe an elbow or a kick. And this physical force is not going to cause any lasting injury. Mm-hmm. It might hurt a little bit. It might shock somebody. The only time I would use a push is if somebody got really close to me and I felt they were going to put hands on me, I would push them back.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
And if that didn't work, I would escalate up to maybe an elbow, maybe a palm strike or something. But it's not going to be anything that's going to be a serious injury.
Right.
Which is the next level, serious physical injury.
Right.
So physical force is down here. Okay. Serious physical injury, next level up. And it's stuff it's going to hurt a lot, probably going to leave a scar. You're probably going to end up going to a hospital or urgent care to get checked out. Okay. At the very least, it might involve a hospital stay or urgent care for a while. And it's going to be an impairment. Like in the state law, it's an impairment of, loss of bodily function, impairment of, whatever, lasting injury, scarring, all that stuff.
Right.
And it has a reasonable risk of causing death.
Right.
Okay.
So physical force kind of not going to risk someone's life, right? But then serious physical injury moves into we're right there at deadly physical force.
Yeah, we're almost there.
We're in that.
Like if somebody let's say we're punching each other and you hit somebody in the temple or the back of the head or something like that, and the injuries are too much. And they black out, or they fall down and they crack their head on the floor and they're dead.
That's risk of serious.
That was serious physical injury, which caused
death.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a reasonable risk. Okay.
Yep.
Now we get into deadly physical force, where there is a action. It will kill somebody. Whatever that force is being used, somebody's going to get possibly seriously hurt, but most likely it's going to kill them.
Yep. But the problem is under New York state law, they really see if it's serious physical injury, they're basically considering that deadly force. Yeah, it doesn't have to cause death to be deadly force, but if it's serious physical injury, it could be considered deadly force.
So hopefully it's pretty not as confusing as it could have been. We have one sentence that sums it all up. Is someone going to get seriously hurt or will they die if I do nothing right now? It's yes or no.
Right.
There's no maybe. If it's a maybe, it's a no.
So maybe, you got to default to no.
It's a, you should be doing a lot of other stuff. If it's a yes,
Yep.
then it's yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's as easy as we can make it, everybody. What's the difference? Well, someone's going to die or not.
Right.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, so hopefully that helps. All right, Matt, what else we got?
All right. This comes from, was it at 1911, a good year? Okay. And
I like some of these names that we got some stuff from.
All right. So if my spouse uses a gun to defend herself, or I guess himself, right? We could,
Themselves.
but she doesn't have it, or they don't have a permit, am I going to be liable? So again, this is a good question. This is like this New York thing, right? Where the guns are listed on our permits.
Yeah.
And for those of you jumping up and down again in the comments, if you don't have a pistol on your permit listed, even if you have a permit, if it's not listed on your permit, you are not supposed to be using it unless the
Unless
person,
you're at range or something.
right, the person who has it on their permit is there.
Right.
And so, you in theory could have a pistol in your house. Maybe it's only on your permit. You haven't gotten it on your spouse's permit, and they happen to use it for self-defense, or even to the point where, and this comes up all the time, kind of in the same vein, I have a legal pistol in the house that I have a permit for, but the spouse doesn't have a permit.
Yep.
Can they use that? Am I going to get in trouble? And the answer is kind of maybe.
Well, for the most part, I remember there was a bulletin put out or a memo put out through a bunch of the DAs in New York State.
Yes.
It was about 5, 6 years
Somewhere
ago.
in that range, yes.
And because there was an instance, and they were talking about this particular thing. And they said, ordinarily, in a justified self-defense setting,
right,
there would be no charges filed.
Against
Ordinarily,
the spouse who used the gun, right,
or the spouse who has the gun listed on
Right,
their pistol license, right?
Correct.
Now, theoretically, if they wanted to really make a case for it, they could say that the spouse that legally owned the gun left it in an area where it could be accessible
right,
to somebody who's not licensed.
Correct.
Okay? Otherwise known as not legal possession.
Or even doesn't have it on their permit if they have permit. So,
Right.
Yep.
But they also look at a factor called the lesser of two evils.
Right.
Okay? They look at, well, if the gun were there and they didn't access because they were afraid of the legal ramifications and they got seriously hurt or killed,
Right.
that's worse.
Right.
Okay? So I'm not saying every DA is going to be like this, but for the most part, the majority
are going to follow something along those lines.
probably not going to be a problem.
Well, it's not basically if the gun was legally in the home
Yeah.
and the person that used it wasn't prohibited, and that was kind of the key, then they would not file charges against that person.
Right. This is one that I get in every class when we talk about law enforcement encounters.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like, well, do I have to tell a police officer if I'm stopped for like a traffic infraction or anything if I'm carrying a firearm? Well, my answer is a very clear, it depends. And here's why. I go with this. I know a lot of law enforcement people in the past. When I did stops, I would be like, do you have any firearms in the car I need to know about? Okay.
Yeah.
I got it out of the way. Most cops that I know, they'll just say it. And if you say yes, but I have a pistol license for it, they're good.
Yeah.
That's as far as it goes. In the end, what it really boils down to is if you believe that the fact that you're carrying a firearm concealed might be a factor in this discussion that you're having with the officer on the side of the road, tell them first, and here's how you do it. Okay, officer, before I go any further, I'd like to tell you I have a pistol license, and I'm carrying my firearm right now. What would you like me to do? Okay, as you're handing them the pistol license.
Yeah.
And I pause after pistol license because I want them to hear that word. Before I say, I've got my pistol license and my gun, I don't want to be all
Don't
nervous.
use the word gun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gat, heater, blaster, nothing.
I have my
right?
pistol permit,
Weapon.
pistol license, something
Yeah.
along those lines. Don't use the word gun.
Use the $20 words, not the $2 words, right?
Well, the problem with that is, especially if they have backup or a partner, the word gun is a cue for them.
Yep.
And if
That
they
there's a
hear
threat
the
present.
word gun, they're going to think there's a threat.
Yeah.
So I have a pistol permit does not sound like a threat.
Exactly.
So, yep.
Or I have a CCW permit. Something,
right.
right?
Something
Don't say
along those
gun
lines.
permit.
No. Moving on.
Your turn.
Yeah, this next one's from at Mars Firefight. And it's
How
interesting.
come you're getting all the Twitter guys ones? I'm
just the way it's
pulling all
going
the
here.
student ones.
Wait, it's here. Does my concealed carry permit allow me to carry in the workplace? There aren't any signs that say I can't, but there aren't any signs that say I can either. So this is a multifaceted because we live in New York. So really, to understand this question or give an answer to this question, we have to understand like New York has a lot of places where we can't carry that fall into a couple categories.
Yeah, that's
And
don't even get it. There's a podcast for that too.
Yeah, so just I'm not going to go through it all, but sensitive locations in New York State. If your workplace is one of those sensitive locations, flat out answer is no, you can't carry there. Period. That's it. The next part of that is if your workplace falls into a restricted location,
Right.
which now actually even some of those places have even been moved out of. So real quick on that, if your workplace is generally open to the public, then it doesn't fall in a restricted area anymore.
Right.
So then concealed carry is not illegal there. So you can carry there.
Unless they put a sign up that
Unless
says
they put a
not
sign up
legal
saying
to-
it is not legal there or they don't want you to carry there. However, when we're talking workplace, be aware almost every business that I know of has some sort of no gun policy, especially for employees. They may even allow guns for customers or clients, but not for employees. I've seen that.
And typically, you know what it is? It's not because they're anti-gun.
Nope.
It's an insurance
It's
thing.
insurance. That's right. It's insurance.
It's just their insurance doesn't want
Well,
weapons on the
nope.
premises.
If they allow it, then they're liable for it. So
Yes.
they say no. So understand that if you carry there or take your gun there, you could face consequences. Maybe not legal consequences, but you could face disciplinary consequences from your company, up to termination if they wanted
Yeah.
to. So you got to be careful with that. So it could be legal at your workplace, but it may not be legal at your workplace as well.
So here's how I tell people to do it. Covertly,
yes,
don't say a word to anybody. Number one, do not ask anybody. Don't say a word.
right.
Okay. Look at your employee handbook. See what it says. Because I have had people tell me that it doesn't mention concealed carry
At
or
all.
weapons in their
Weapons, nope.
employee handbook. You know what? Then you shut up
It's concealed carry.
and you be very discreet. You don't even tell your coworkers anything. You don't even let on anything. This is your secret, your superpower. The minute you tell somebody, it's no longer a secret. Okay? Keep it to yourself, because what will happen is if somebody does find out, there will be an addendum to that employee manual that will say no weapons allowed.
Yeah,
And you
once
will
they
be
get-
the cause
yeah.
for it.
Yep.
So you don't want to be the test case.
Yeah.
Let somebody else do it.
So on that same note, we have the next question, which is from Bob with a whole bunch of numbers after it.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And it goes right along with this. Do I have to keep my firearm locked up in the workplace if it's not in my holster?
Why would it be out of your holster?
Well, yeah, exactly. So,
Okay. That's
Right.
that's just a blatant question. Why would it be out of your holster? It doesn't make sense. If a holster is a really good place to keep a gun, it keeps it safe, it keeps it secure, it keeps it on you.
under your control.
Yeah.
Right.
So why would you take it out of the holster, number one? But okay. The world's not perfect.
If you do, then
Maybe a locked drawer that only you have the key for.
right.
Right? Or
But it should
maybe
be secured somehow.
it's
If you
gotta be
don't
locked
have
up.
control of it immediately, you have to have control of it. You have to secure it.
Honestly, what you probably could do is find one of those small clamshell lock boxes that are about this big. Okay, maybe so it would fit your gun.
Like the ones we have in our store.
Yeah, like the ones we carry in the carry gear store.
Yeah.
And see if you can cable lock it inside a drawer somewhere or to the desk
Yep.
or something, and then just discreetly put it in there while you go and do whatever you got to do that makes
Obviously,
it impossible to have it in the
They
holster.
were already thinking about not having it on them. So yes.
Yeah. Does the law work differently if I defend myself with a handgun or shotgun or rifle? I have all three for self-defense at home, but I want to avoid the hysteria on rifles or the overkill of a shotgun. Well, you know what? Deadly force is deadly force. If it's being used against you, you got to pick up whatever tool you have available at that moment and defend your life.
Right.
Okay. The only reason I would say you should make a choice on a pistol or a rifle or a shotgun is where do you live or where do you think that this encounter is going to happen? Where do you envision this?
Right. I mean, pistols are for carrying around and having with you.
Yeah. The only reason we carry pistols is because we can't carry shotguns and rifles concealed.
Right. Exactly.
They're portable arms.
Right.
Or a howitzer.
So, but I guess kind of in that same vein, though, in states like New York, there is a stigma around, especially certain types of rifles. I don't want to get too far down there.
Right.
So often I would recommend not using a certain type of rifle.
Like the modern sporting rifle.
Modern sporting rifle. There we go. Modern sporting rifle. Personally, for a long gun, I have a shotgun. Is my primary long gun for home defense. I mean, there's even another way to look at this too in New York State. Deadly force is deadly force. You said it right at the beginning.
Deadly force is deadly force.
It doesn't matter whether you shoot someone with a beanbag round, a rubber buckshot round, or a 12 gauge lead slug.
Yeah.
All of those are considered deadly force because you used a firearm against somebody.
Yep.
So therefore, it doesn't really matter if you use a pistol, a rifle, shotgun. It's all going to be seen the same.
It's all a deadly force response.
You all use deadly force. A 22 or a 357 Magnum isn't going to make any difference. Yep. So.
Yep. Okay. But no, I don't think there's any worse or any stigma in the legal sense, but there might be some public opinion based on that.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my God, he shot him with a shotgun.
Right.
Oh, there's, everybody thinks shotguns are, just going to, vaporize people.
Right.
So yeah, doesn't work any differently. Not in the sense, if you got to defend your life with what you got. Okay. All right. Your turn.
Number 10. This comes up in classes. Okay. So this one's from students. If I ever were to misplace my firearm, who should I report it to? Will I be liable for the firearm if I report it right away? Man, this is another one. There's a lot here. So misplace. First off, how did you misplace your firearm? It's either with you, on you, secured, locked up. So how did you misplace
access or in a gun
it?
safe.
So, but yes, if you misplace it, and we have had people come to class, usually after they've had a permit suspended, because they have misplaced their firearm, which usually means it got stolen because it wasn't secured, and they haven't checked on it or noticed for a while.
Yeah. Or in one case, their gun was in their vehicle and their spouse took it, who didn't have a pistol license.
Yeah.
It was in the glove box or in the console or under the seat in places they shouldn't be.
Right.
And they got into a car accident.
Yep.
And the car was, towed and impounded.
Yeah.
And they do an inventory and they find the gun.
Yep.
Well, guess where that gun's going to go? They're not going to call you.
Yeah.
They're not going to call your spouse. They're going to call the law enforcement agency. They brought the gun in, and then it goes to them, and then it just gets crazy from there.
Right. So, but yes, you need to, and legally, you're actually required to report a misplaced or stolen firearm
Lost or stolen
within 24 hours, right, of discovery. So as soon as you realize, the problem with that is if you haven't noticed that's been gone for a while, that's going to be probably held against you. And we've seen this, where the judge will say, well, when was the last time you knew you had that gun? Yeah. And if you say 6 months ago, that could be a problem. So yes, you need to report it. You need to report it right away. You need to keep it secure so it doesn't just go missing. You should call the police. You should call 911 to report it. Yep. Like as soon as you realize it, call 911. Yep. Say I have a pistol. If you're in New York, I have a pistol permit, and I've realized one of my guns is missing. Now I've had people call, and they literally misplaced it. Like they found it in the cushions of their couch later on, or something like that. It does happen. Don't be that guy. But the second part of this question I find interesting: will I be liable for the firearm if I report it right away? Now I'm not an attorney, right? And I guess what do we define as liable? Right. So if you report it and it's used in a crime, you're not going to be criminally charged with something related to the crime. That's my understanding.
You may face some consequences,
but there may be some consequences. Number one, you misplace a firearm like that or have it stolen in New York, your permit is going to be suspended. Yep. It's going to come under review. You're going to probably have to fight to keep it. There's going to be some legal fees. It's going to take some time. You're going to get an attorney. Yep.
There's a lot.
you're probably going to get the rest of your guns seized. And I say that because they
All
often
of them.
seize long guns as well,
Guns and handguns.
not just your handguns. And I've heard this recently, like if that gun was used maybe to hurt someone, kill someone, you could be sued by the victim or the victim's family because
you made it possible.
Made it possible for them to do that, right?
Yeah.
I have definitely heard of that coming up. So yeah, there's definitely some consequences there.
So let's look at this. All right. You know, and as instructors, we try to not focus on the negative, right? But we have to be aware there's risk. Here's the thing. Here's how you can avoid all of that. Make sure that you have a gun safe or a secure location to lock your guns up in your home. Make sure that if you're carrying out in the public, you have some sort of lockbox or safe or something in your vehicle.
Yep.
Your vehicle is not the safe. Your glove box is not the safe. Your console is not the safe unless you put a console vault in, okay? Yep. Or you put a lockbox in the back of the vehicle that's out of sight or something under the seat, whatever. But the lockbox has to be secure so it can't be taken out of the vehicle.
Right.
Okay? If you do everything you can to make sure that that firearm does not leave your control, then there's a very good chance you're not going to have to worry about all this other stuff.
Right.
Right? Like, I can honestly tell you right now, you know, I have quite a few handguns. You have quite a few handguns and rifles, you know, rifles and shotguns and everything. Ed behind the counter has like 3. They're all staccato. We know that. Maybe his Beretta, you know, 1301, but, you know, he doesn't have that many guns. Yeah, right.
Sure.
So, I can pretty much bet that all 3 of us know exactly where every single one of our firearms is at this very moment, right now. Okay? Why? Because they're either locked up, they're secured for access, or they're with me. And that's it. I've cut the variables out.
Right.
Okay? I don't leave guns laying around. I don't leave them hanging out. They're locked up or they're with me. That's it. So do that. Be good about that. Don't just assume that you can leave one leaning behind the front door. You know, there are places in America that you can do that and get away with it. I'm okay. But just remember, there's consequences to those actions. Okay? People break into homes. They break into cars. Those are the 2 main places they get firearms from illegally. Then they steal them from dealers or they buy them on the street.
Number 1 is car break.
Where do you think they got all the guns on the street from? Home, vehicle, or dealer. Okay? Yeah. So let's not get to the point where you got to worry about losing your pistol license because you left a gun somewhere you shouldn't have.
Right.
Okay? So there we go. And we're beating them up. I really hope all this stuff happens. Guys, also, you know, if you've got other questions, comment below.
Yeah.
Give us some more questions on stuff. We'll do our best to answer them.
We'll get it in the comments.
And honestly, one of the things, if it's a question we haven't gotten or we're not 100% sure of the answer, we will reach out to our legal team and we will give you an answer. It might be in a future video or it might be, we'll just answer in the comment section. But reach out to us, talk to us about this stuff. All right, so we got a couple more.
Yep.
All right.
I like this one here, so I'm going to grab that one.
All right, you take it.
Yeah. Cuckoo 42 at Cuckoo. They're saying, I just moved to New York. How do I get my handguns here?
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay.
So first off, in New York, to touch a handgun, you need a pistol license, right?
Yeah.
So you got to apply for your pistol license, which I think we have a question about doing that part, but just know you got to have your pistol license. And then you can't just bring your handguns here. You can't like go down to Florida and drive them back up. Even if you have your pistol license, because they're not going to be registered on your permit. So the only way to get pistols into New York is to have them sent from a gun dealer, an FFL, in the state where they're at, to an FFL here in New York. And then that dealer will give you the proper paperwork once you have your permit to add those guns to that permit. And then once they're added, you can go get them from that gun dealer. So you're going to pay shipping. You might pay storage while you're waiting. But no, that's the only legal way. And if you drive them up here, and we've run into this with people that are like, oh, I brought my guns with me. Turn them into a gun shop. Like you don't want them in your possession.
Yeah.
And it is impossible to get them added to your permit. There's no way for you, if you just bring them here, to get them added.
You can't do it yourself.
You can't do it yourself, right? There's no self-service form.
Yeah.
You have to have a receipt from a gun shop. So that's a pretty simple answer.
And it's just unfortunate. You know, there's a few states that tie you to specific firearms.
And this is one of them.
Handguns.
Yeah.
We're one of them.
Yep.
Okay. So that it creates that kind of rigmarole where you got to navigate the shallow water to make
Right.
it happen. But yeah, it's a pain in the butt. If you've got questions on it, reach out to us. We'll help you. Okay, we'll help you. There is a way to make it happen. It's just going to require some steps.
Right.
Okay, and some expense, obviously.
Yep.
All right. So, here's one that I can answer very easily. What should I say to the police after an incident involving my CCW?
I think we're going to have
Like
the same answer.
my pistol,
Right?
right?
Something, right, whatever it is.
Right?
Here, what's the answer?
Well, it depends on what level of involvement. Okay. So let's start at a lower level. You get into some. Now remember, we're going to talk about an unplanned altercation. Okay. And here's why. If you start the fight, you're a jackass. Just stay with that. If somebody mouths off to you and you echo that, you're a jackass. Okay. You've got nothing to prove to somebody who decides to start a fight with you, unless it involves physical injury or worse. Okay. Walk away. Okay. You have to be the better person, the bigger person. You have to be the one that disengages sooner because you're the gun guy and you don't want it to get to that point. Trust me. It's a lot of money. You're risking a lot of stuff. Don't do it. But let's say it was the display of a handgun and the situation resolved itself. Okay. We'll say the assaulter or the combatant or whatever, the other person in this decided they didn't want to play anymore. You better call the police because you bet your butt somebody else did. Okay. And you better call the police. And on the 911 call, you should say, here's where I am. Here's what I look at. Here's what I look like. Okay. Somebody tried to hurt me. I displayed my firearm and they ran away. And that's it. The second call should be to your attorney and then follow their directions. Most attorneys are going to say, don't say a word other than this is who I am and this is where I live and I'm waiting for my attorney to show up and we will cooperate with the investigation. Yeah. Okay? But you're going to wait for your attorney. Do not say anything else. That's it.
Don't make any statements without your attorney.
Now, it's human nature. We want to keep talking. We want to, because we're the good guys. We want to make sure they know that we're the good guys.
Well, and the police are going to be like, hey, man, we can settle this now.
Yeah, we can
They're
work it
going to
out.
try to
Just
be
tell
your
me.
friend. Just tell us what happened.
Yep.
I will be glad to cooperate with your investigation with my attorney present here with me.
Yep.
That's all you want to say.
So the job of law enforcement is to collect evidence to determine if a crime and what crime was committed. That's it. They're not there to take a side.
Yep.
Okay? And they may say, hey, man, yeah, that's a guy we've been looking for. Good job. You know what?
Okay.
But ignore that.
I want him arrested, and I'll make a statement when
I
my attorney
want you to
gets here.
find him. I want him arrested. I want to press charges. He tried to hurt me.
But
Okay? As long as you did what you did was legal, you're going to be okay. But get your attorney involved because you need to protect yourself. The Fifth Amendment is for innocent people to not make it worse.
Right.
It's not for guilty people to.
and don't say
to
I plead the
escape.
Fifth. Just say I will cooperate when my attorney is here and present.
Exactly. So that's the display. Let's say there was a discharge of a firearm and there's somebody's wounded or worse. Okay. We're just going to go the two. There's usually like 5 or 6 steps in here. But let's say the other end of the spectrum. Okay. This came from multiple attorneys who have said the same thing no matter what. Okay. They've said save as little as possible, but enough so that the officer arriving and the law enforcement officers know that it was self-defense. And the easiest way to do it is, okay, so let's say you discharge the firearm, or even on a display you can say this, but let's say we're at the discharge part, okay? You've shot at them, you've shot them, whatever, okay? Whether they're there or not, it doesn't matter. That person tried to kill me. It was self-defense. Four distinct words. I want to press charges. I want them arrested. I will cooperate with the investigation when my attorney is present, and then zip it.
Right.
Okay? The other thing you probably could say is, there is the gun, there's the evidence, those people saw it. Okay? Those people saw it too.
Yeah, focus
Point
on
out witnesses.
Yeah, point out what they did, not what you did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay? Because think of it this way. You were forced to do this. You didn't choose to do this today. You were forced to do it. They did it. They're the one at fault. They are the aggressor. They are the problem. Okay? They tried to kill me. They tried to hurt me. It was self-defense. I want them arrested. I want to press charges. You need to be the advocate for yourself.
Yep.
Then you need to protect yourself.
Yep.
Okay? They saw it. There's his gun. They ran that way. And I will cooperate, but I want my attorney present. Can I call my attorney right now?
Yep.
That's it. And one attorney, actually, a bunch of attorneys have told me, you can deny any searches until your attorney's there. So you could say, I do not consent to a search of my house, my car, me, until my attorney is present. I will not fight you, but I do not consent to any searches. Okay, you're putting up that wall of defense because you're still the good guy no matter what. And you want them to know you're the good guy. But those 4 words right at the beginning are going to be key. That person tried to kill me. It was self-defense. Mm-hmm. And now you are controlling how this is going to play out.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, after an incident, say very little, but just enough. And that is probably just enough. Now, I know there's probably attorneys watching this because I know that some of them follow us. And they're probably saying, no, don't say a word. Don't say a word. I get it. Okay. But not saying a word makes it a lot more difficult for you. Okay. I've had attorneys who have successfully defended people in affirmative defense cases in New York State. That's what a self-defense shooting is. Okay. Have said, yeah, that's good. That's good. That person tried to kill me. It was self-defense. I want them arrested. I want to press charges.
Right.
That is excellent.
Yeah.
But they said, don't go blabbing on about everything else. No. So, yeah, run that one. Run it. You should learn that loop in your mind. And at worst, best case, just hand them your attorney's card. This is the guy we're going to talk to. Okay? So, yeah, protect yourself.
Yep.
You need to protect yourself. You fought and you won the incident. You won. You're good. Now you got to protect yourself from the rest. Okay? And we've got all sorts of resources for that stuff.
Cool.
All right. So that was a pretty deep one right there.
Right.
Let's pull back into a different one. How about there's one that I get all the time. We get on the phone, right?
Yeah. So this one, yeah. How do I get my pistol license in New York State? We're talking.
Yeah, in New York State.
Well, the first step is to take the now mandated 18-hour class.
Yep.
Which we teach, right? So it's on our calendar. Call us. We'll get you into one. That literally is the first step. We go through like how to do the paperwork and the whole process in the class. But the second piece then is to actually apply to the county you live in.
Yeah, follow through.
And each county is different on how they handle that.
Yeah.
Right? So each county has its own kind of process, but all of them require you to apply in person to the county with your certificate from the class. And there may be other paperwork you need. And then you also have to get fingerprinted for every county. You have to get fingerprinted. And after that, you kind of go into a waiting period. And there's a background investigation and, stuff that happens after that.
Backgrounding, judge investigation, or judge meeting, which is normal.
Right, that's the last piece.
And then you get a pistol license.
Right.
So, you really think about this. I tell people in the classes when I teach them is I want you to think about all the effort you've taken to get your pistol license in New York State.
Yeah, it takes a bit, right?
It takes a little bit. We're talking 4 to 4.5 months in most counties. That's the average. Some are less.
At least that.
Some are more. And, some expense, some time out of your life, 16, 18 hours, 2 days of training, which, it's still very valuable. So it's not like you're wasting time.
Right.
But there's a lot of people out there. It's like, I just don't have that extra time. Yeah. Well, please make the time. It'll be worth it.
Right.
But you're investing money, you're investing time, you're gaining knowledge. So it's something important. You should cherish it, but also respect it. But also don't let anybody try to take it away from you too easily either. Okay? Fight for this right. I'm not going to give you the Second Amendment speech, but you know what? You're fighting hard to get it. You should fight just as hard to keep it. That's the way I explain it.
Right.
But getting a pistol license in New York is not difficult.
It's a process.
But there's a process to it, exactly. And we can, and honestly, we've we've got a really good handle on the process in most of the counties that we work with. You know, we keep a really good eye on it, and we can walk you through pretty much all of it up to and including submitting the application packet.
Yeah.
And then we can even advise you what's going to happen after.
Yep.
So we can like demystify the whole process for you.
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
But again, it's not that hard. Just reach out to us. We'll get you started.
Yep.
All right. So here's an interesting one. I think we got like maybe a couple more here.
Yeah.
Okay. My friend told me you shouldn't carry it around in the chamber. Is that true?
Your friend is dumb. That's my answer.
Your friend doesn't know what they need to know.
That's it.
So yeah, well, is that the answer? Yeah, your friend is dumb.
Friend is dumb.
Here's the real answer. Okay. I get it. I get the sentiment. Yes, guns themselves are a little safer without a round in the chamber. I get it. But you yourself are not safe without a round in the chamber if you're carrying it concealed.
Who usually says that is a person who has very little training and experience.
Or they don't know how to trust their gun, which is answered by more training and experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's who usually makes that statement.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you're thinking it, talk to us. We can advise you on what training classes will make you more comfortable with that firearm and make you understand how safe the gun can be with a round in the chamber.
And how to carry safely. I think that's the other thing. People don't understand how to carry safely.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not true.
Not true.
And as Matt said, yeah, your friend's dumb.
Yep.
Maybe both of you should get some training if you believe in that.
Get
you know, it's
training.
a twofer.
Right.
So, all right, Matt, your turn. Hit us with another one.
Where do I when I travel, where can I bring my gun? It's going to depend on where you're traveling.
Yeah.
Right.
Oof, that's a tough.
And it also, I mean, this is huge. This could be a whole podcast. But bottom line, it's going to depend on what we're talking about with what do you mean by your gun, and also, I think our audience probably is mostly New York State. When you leave New York State, you have to get out of our way of thinking, especially with handguns. Most places in the U.S., you can have your handgun with you. You may not be able to carry it. You may not be able to have it loaded like in your car,
right?
But you can take it with you, and you almost always can load it like in your hotel room at night for protection, or in your RV if you're staying in the RV park or something like that. So yeah, good resources. USCCA's website, usacarry.com.
The NRA, ILA,
right?
They have a
section on state laws. So go in there and look. Like, hey, I'm going to this place.
Oh, you know
what are the rules?
CCW app.
The CCW app, yep.
CCW app is a good resource to have too.
But that'll tell you like what are the rules where you're going. And if we're talking about handguns in particular, a lot of states, 29 states now have constitutional carry.
Yeah,
that you can actually carry with no permit needed.
Yeah.
But just understand there may be different rules for where you can carry in that state if you have a permit versus don't have a permit.
Yeah. So here's the terminology. Permitless carry is different from constitutional carry.
Right.
And then every state has differences.
Different rules around that. Yes, exactly.
So do your research.
Do your research.
I can tell you right now that up until constitutional carry exploded, like within the last couple of years, New York State's pistol license on its face was accepted in 11 states, maybe 14. But that's probably grown since other states have.
Well, now with constitutional carry, right? There still is the idea of reciprocity with permits. The other states recognize your permit, or even if you have like a Utah or Florida, which give non-resident permits, and that still has validity again because there's different rules if there's a recognized permit. Or not, or if you're carrying under, usually like they say permitless carry, there might be different rules, so be aware of that. And then each state might have different rules specifically, even if you have a permit, where there might be places that are off limits.
Right.
So you got to look at that.
There are some states that if you're carrying on your home state permit in that state, you're limited to certain areas, like usually open public areas, but you can't go in certain places.
Right.
But if you have that state's pistol license,
then
you can go into those areas.
Areas,
there's subtle differences. What I would suggest, if all you have is a New York pistol license and you want to travel, come see us for the multi-state course.
Yep.
And you'll end up with applications for the states of Utah and Florida.
Yep.
Which then you increase your ability to carry in 38 states.
That's 38 states right now. Right?
So you just it just explodes on you.
And then go get your Pennsylvania permit, and that gives you 39.
There we go.
So,
Yeah.
But a lot of places you can take your gun even with no permit. Just know that. You don't have to think like New York where, oh my God, I can't even have it with me. You can take it. So all right.
Well, so last question that I've got, and I don't know if I want to end it on this. So think of one we've gotten in class that we don't, we can add one more to this. So we really have like two. Okay. So you think about that while I answer this one.
All right.
Okay. Now this actually was given to us by one of our instructors, Mike Reberg, who's been doing our 18-hour course. I wanted to give him a shout out to make him feel good. He will be on a podcast here soon. We're going to get him involved in something. Yeah. That'll be a fun one. that'll be exciting. So this is a real question. This is no lie.
This just happened. Yeah. In a class.
If there's a gunfight outside and a bullet comes in my window, can I shoot back? I'm going to honestly tell you, Mike, my answer to that is if a bullet comes in the window because there's a gunfight outside, I'm ducking.
Yeah,
I'm going to hide behind something really robust, and I'll probably get my gun because I don't know if they're really shooting at my house or if they're just shooting near my house and my house was an innocent bystander. But I'm not planning on returning fire unless a lot of them come in my house. Then I might change my plan. But there's no patent answer in my mind.
No.
But honestly, the answer should be no. You should just duck and hide behind something solid, or go in your basement if you can and stay there until the shooting's over. Don't just start shooting back out your window. You don't know who's out there.
Right.
You don't know what's going on out there.
Right.
It might be a bad guy versus law enforcement, and all of a sudden you start popping rounds out the window.
Don't do that.
And all of a sudden, a lot more rounds are going to be coming in your window.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the chances of you knowing like where those rounds are coming from and identifying the threat is pretty low. And you have to identify the threat and know what you are returning fire against, right? So is that person a threat? And it's the same thing. There has to be risk to someone's life for you to use deadly force.
Yeah. Not to
The chances of you shooting outside of your house like that and meeting all that criteria is almost zero.
Not just because you're annoyed because somebody just shut your window.
Right.
That's property damage.
Guys, there's no covering fire in the civilian world.
Covering fire!
Okay.
Yeah.
Or suppressive fire. That doesn't work, right?
Yeah. Only in the movies and TV.
Military, that's one thing, but not in this world. So.
Oh boy. All right. Did you think of one more that we usually get? Because I've got one tickling around in my brain.
I was trying to think of one. No, I do really. What do you got?
All right. We'll throw it in there.
Okay.
Okay. If somebody breaks in my house, can I shoot them?
Well, we get that in every class.
We get that every class, right?
More than once, usually in the same class.
And that was one of the ones that was suggested to us when I polled somebody.
Right.
If somebody breaks into your home, can you shoot them? The answer is, I don't know.
What's the circumstance?
Here's why. Yeah, what are they doing in your home? Are they stealing your TV? You can't shoot people over your property.
Right.
Okay, your personal belongings. You just can't. Now, here's the explanation. Here's how I do it. In New York State only. Okay, if somebody breaks into your home and they're committing a crime inside, they're committing a burglary, but it's a 2-element crime. The entering or remaining unlawfully in a building or dwelling with the intent to commit a crime inside. It's a 2-element thing. You got to have both. Otherwise, you have a theft or trespass.
Trespass, right.
That's it.
Yep.
Okay. Now, let's say they're committing both. New York State does have a provision for the use of deadly physical force. It doesn't require it. It just affords you that opportunity in the case of a burglary. But here's how I want you to think. I want you to be better. Okay? If they're stealing my stuff, honestly, other than a weapon or another family member or anything that can be used as a weapon, there is nothing in my home that's a personal belonging that I'm willing to kill somebody over. Mm-hmm. Everything can be replaced. Okay?
Yeah.
But if it's a family member, well, that's a different story. Now it's a personal assault. It's no longer a property crime or a theft. Okay? If it's something that I believe is going to be used as a weapon, okay, it's a different story now. Right? But honestly, you want to take the TV that's mounted to the wall, have at it. Mine, I bought it 4 years ago. I can probably get a better one for a third the price.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Maybe 2/3 the price. Okay? You'll help me upgrade. I'm not going to make it difficult for you. I'm not going to make it easy for you. I'm going to make it difficult for you. But I'm also not going to shoot you over that. I've got some I've got some heirloom stuff. I've got some family stuff. I've got some valuable stuff. But you know what?
Doesn't matter.
I'm not saying if you break into my home, you're going to leave. You're probably going to be there when the police arrive. But, I've got the dogs that are going to be involved. And you know what? I'm not going to make it easy for you. All right. But am I going to shoot you? I don't know. It depends on what you decide to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what I advise people. It really depends on what the person does. If you present a threat
Right.
to a family member or myself, I will respond accordingly. I would urge you to respond accordingly. But know your laws. Know what you're able to do. But also think about this. Anything you can do to avoid shooting somebody, unless it's absolutely a self-defense setting, you should do that. Anything else, do that. The last thing you should even have to do, remember, using a firearm is the last resort.
Yep.
Okay? It is not a choice. You're being forced to do this. So if I'm being forced to do that in my home,
Yep.
there was no other option. Okay? How do you
I mean, it's
push that?
what we boil down to at the very end of the class always is someone going to get seriously injured or die if I don't do something?
Yep.
Then, use deadly force to stop that. But if not, then why are you doing it, right?
Yeah.
And there's consequences even in a justified self-defense shooting.
Yeah.
You're going to have social, emotional, monetary. There can be a lot of consequences even if you are justified. So what are you willing to risk that for? Someone's life, basically. So,
is it worth going to jail?
Yeah.
Is it worth potentially going to prison?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. That's the threshold, everyone. Okay. Think of it this way. Here's the other thing. I know people that have investigated shootings. Okay. I'm very close to a bunch of people that have investigated shootings in the home. Number one, it's very messy. Okay. Guess who's cleaning it up? You're cleaning it up. No one's going to come in and clean it up for you unless you hire them.
Yes.
Okay. But you're the one that's going to have to deal with it.
Right.
Okay. So you think of the aftermath in this. You have to take this into account. Not at the moment it's going on, but you have to take the aftermath into account.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mess. You have to consider this now.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess that one is a pretty heavy one. Let's end with that one. If somebody breaks into your home, you have to make a decision. Do you just hunker down in your house, get your family members into the same room, call the police, hope they get there in time? If not, you might lose some stuff.
Yep.
You know what? That's far better than going out there and introducing yourself into the situation and making it worse.
Yep.
So, it sucks. It means you might have to lose your stuff. It might means you've got some trauma to deal with, that somebody entered your home and took your stuff. Okay. My solution is get better locks, talk to somebody about it, fix the window, get glass, break-proof film put on the windows, and now you've made it less likely it's going to happen again.
Yep.
Okay? But in the end, guys, these were all real questions. They weren't made up. There wasn't anything that we pulled from movies or anything. These were real questions that we've been asked or people have sent to us. If you have any real questions, go ahead, ask us down below. We'll answer them.
Yeah. Put them in the comments.
Yep.
So,
guys, that's all we got for this one. So, in closing, don't forget to like, subscribe,
and mash
that notification button, and also send the link to the podcast out to your friends.
Share this out.
Share this
to people. Share it out.
Yeah,
please. Helps us out.
We've got a lot of stuff planned coming up here since the weather's breaking, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So, thank you for tuning in for another great episode. Hopefully you learned a lot. Hopefully we straightened up some myths and misconceptions. And we might have frustrated you a little bit on some topics, but that's okay. Our goal is to educate you so that you don't end up going to jail or prison or worse. So thanks for tuning in to the Match Grade Podcast.
Thanks, everybody.
See you at the next one.
See you.